One time, I was chased through the woods. Now this story takes place during Halloween time, where this one year I ended up going home with one of my best friends to spend time in her hometown. And while we were there, we were trying to think of something spooky to do, right? It's Halloween time, we're in the mood for a little scare. And one of the guys we were hanging out with brings up the Witch Woods, which is basically this like super creepy like forest trail in the middle of nowhere in their town. At the very tippy top of this hill is like this spooky cemetery where there are like witches buried everywhere, and it's just the perfect Halloween activity, right? So we're all ready. We want to go that night. So it ends up being me, my friend, one of her girlfriends, and this guy. We end up all getting in his truck. We drive like 45 minutes to this forest in the middle of nowhere. And when I tell you driving down the forest road was literally out of like a horror movie, okay? It is pitch black. There is only one road in and out. The trees are like gray on the sides of the road and they're like curving in over the car. It was so spooky. We have one headlamp that my friend was wearing and one flashlight. So we all get out, we're super excited. We end up walking up to the front of the trail, which ends up having one of those like horse gates because it was a trail that was open during the day and nobody technically was supposed to be there at night. So we had to hop it. This will come in later. So we end up getting inside. We're like walking the trail that'll take us to where the cemetery is. And we start hearing all these noises. We're like jumping at every little like twig crack. It's super creepy. We're seeing all of these like grave sites where different witches and stuff are supposedly buried. Any little sound, we're jumping, we're like squealing. And the guy we're with is like, you guys are so annoying. Like there are literally animals in the forest right now. Like chill out. There's animals, like that's what's making those noises. We keep walking forward. All of a sudden we're seeing like glowing eyes looking at us through the trees and we're freaking out. And he's like, honestly, you guys need to chill out. You guys are almost like sucking the fun out of it because you're freaking out over everything. Like those are animals, like you're fine. So all of a sudden we continue walking forward, right? And I start to notice twig snapping in the forest. But I start to notice that as we are getting further and further down this trail into the witch woods, that the twig snapping is always the same distance behind us. You would think that if there were animals just roaming around and you would be walking away from said animals, that the twig snapping, the forest sounds would be further and further away as you walk forward. But no. These peculiar noises were always the same distance behind us, which leads me to believe that whatever is in the forest is following us. So we keep walking forward. We finally get to this grassy field, which is the way that we have to go to get to the hill with the cemetery at the top. We end up walking through this field. It's like flattened out for us where people clearly have been like walking over it for like years and years and years and years. So we end up walking, we get a couple paces toward the hill. And all of a sudden, we hear boom coming from the woods. We all kind of freeze and look at each other and we're like, okay, that was a weird wood noise, but okay. And we take a couple more steps forward and then we hear boom again. At this point, the guy we're with is actually visibly shook by this. Like all of a sudden he's like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, like that's a little weird. And then we hear boom, 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 3 times in succession, back to back. At that point, we're all freaking out. It's coming from the woods that we just left. And the guy that we're with is like, okay, nope, that's not supposed to happen. That is not an animal. I don't feel comfortable anymore. Like, you guys are right. But of course, we're all young, dumb, and stupid. And, you know, by this point, we end up reaching the bottom of the hill with the cemetery at the top. The cemetery we came this entire way to see. So in our minds, we're like, well, you know what? We're already at the bottom of the hill. It's like right up there. Let's just run up, see the cemetery really quick and leave. So we end up heart racing, pounding, running up to the top of this cemetery, seeing it, being like, wow, cemetery, creepy, cool, got it, and booking it out of there, right? Now the way that the trail was it was basically one big circle, right? So we came this way, the cemetery was here, and it was basically one straight path all the way back. Now, right as we're getting out of the field to get back onto the trail, we notice that there is this abandoned cottage off to the side, right? And I'm not gonna lie, we were kind of like sketched out by the noises we were hearing, but we were kind of captivated by this cabin. So they're looking around, it's really creepy, and I remember as it's happening, I notice out of the corner of my eye, the flashlight pan over this tree, and it ends up reflecting over this white object. So I end up looking over, and I see that there is this Jason mask on the side of the tree. Now, of course, this is Halloween time, so in my mind, I'm like, oh, how funny, you know, some kids probably came up here to the witch woods and, you know, put a Jason mask on the tree for Halloween to like scare people, right? And all of a sudden, the mask goes and cocks its head at me. Nope, absolutely not. In that moment, I went, there's a man in the woods. There's a man in the woods. Jason mask behind the tree. Jason mask behind the tree. I am booking it. I bolted, okay? I did not want to ask questions. I was out of there. My friend with the headlamp ends up just not even asking questions, immediately follows behind me. My heart is absolutely racing in this moment because we heard these weird sounds. We thought there was somebody in the woods, and I just had concrete confirmation that I was right. We end up stopping further down the trail, looking back, and you know, the guy and the girl are like laughing at us, like, you guys are such scaredy cats. There's no Jason mask in the woods. There's nobody in here. You're being so scared. And my friend looks at me and she's like, are you sure? Like, positive that you saw what you saw? And I said, absolutely. There was somebody in a mask behind that tree, its head cocked to the side, and they might not be alone in this woods, so we need to go. Because again, these are the witch woods, the notorious scary witch woods of this town. So somebody deranged coming up during Halloween time to try and harm someone in these woods is not outside of the realm of real possibility. And all of a sudden, we hear the two behind us start screaming, man in the woods! My friend and I look at each other and we go, it's real! And take off. The two behind us start running. We aren't even looking around. We don't even care who, what, where, when, why. All we know is go. We end up making it to that horse gate. I end up sliding under it like Matrix style. We get up, we run, we make it to the truck. We can't get in the truck, it's locked. And the only person with the key was the guy that was behind us running. So I remember my friend and I looking at each other in that moment and being like, okay, we need to focus. Like, we need to grab something to defend ourselves. Like, we just need to survive. So we're at the truck. We end up seeing those two jumping the horse gate, running directly at the truck. The guy's like fumbling with the keys, trying to open it. And we're like, what happened? Like, what did you see? And they were like, so we thought that you guys were just like being scaredy cats or pranking us. And then all of a sudden we turn around and this guy in a Jason mask walks out of the woods and starts chasing them with something in his hand like this. So we know it's real. They know it's real. We end up getting in, we close the doors, we lock it, we turn the headlights on. And as the headlights turn on, we see this man slowly walk out of the woods and stand directly in the middle of the road in our path. So like I said from the very beginning, the only way to get out of these woods is one road in and out. So we had to do this tight 3-point turn in order to get out and escape. We're starting to turn around. We're screaming at the guy. The guy's like, I'm going as fast as I can, trying to turn. And the guy is just standing in the middle of the road, right? And in that moment, there was a brief second where I was like, okay, maybe this is just some kid trying to like scare people in the witch woods during Halloween, you know, maybe he's not trying to hurt us. And then all of a sudden, he beelines it, full speed ahead sprint toward the trunk of our car. And he jumps in the bed of the truck and starts banging on the back window. Okay, we are terrified over it. And after this happens, the freaking guy that's driving this truck starts to pull over to the side. We're like, what the heck are you doing? And he was like, I gotta get him out of my truck. And we're like, you what? Like, just swerve a couple times, he'll fall off. And he's like, no, this guy's gonna ruin the back of my truck. Like, I gotta get him out of my truck. And we're like, okay, well, your funeral, nice to know you, I guess. So he gets out, he talks to this guy. We immediately lock the doors and we're like, sorry, pal, every man for himself. And all of a sudden, we see the guy take off the mask, come around to the driver's side window, tap on it, and both him and the guy who drove us here are cracking up laughing. So we end up reluctantly rolling the window down and this guy goes, hi, I'm Jason. Literally. I'm actually this guy's friend. I was hiding in the truck bed of this truck under a blanket the entire 45 minutes up to the woods just so I could get out, follow you guys in the woods, and prank you. Welcome to the witch woods. You've had your experience. What? So the whole thing was just this elaborate prank to scare us in the woods. Remember that the guy that had driven us up there ended up asking like, what were those really loud banging sounds? And he was like, oh, I picked up like a thick tree trunk and I was just like slamming them against trees. And we're like, this man literally stalked stealthily through the woods just to find the right moment to peek out behind that tree and terrify us. But the thing about that moment that's so interesting to me is even though it ended up being a prank, it really was an experience that could happen to you. But it also showed me how I would naturally and instinctually act if I was put in a situation like that. And it was interesting to see that I am somebody who like just focuses, locks in, and is like, nothing else matters. We need to logically look at how to get out of this situation and just do it. And I am just running on pure adrenaline to get myself out of the situation. But yeah, that's the time I got chased through a witch woods by a man in a Jason mask. And I thought that I was about to have my Friday the 13th moment. And I almost did. Wild.